Good evening and welcome to The Square. Tonight's discussion is going to look at Rwanda Day and the impact that it's had over the last 10 years. Rwanda Day 2019 took place in October, on October 5th in Bonn, Germany, and it was under the theme Rwanda 25, Owning Our Future. So tonight's discussion is really to understand Rwanda Day, what inspired the creation of Rwanda Day, and the impact it's had from diaspora as well as within Rwanda over the last decade. I am joined here by guests tonight, and I'm going to start with our guest on my immediate right. You're here for the third time.
Yes.
We are joined by Louis Antoine Muhire, who is the CEO of Rwanda Cooperation Initiative. Great to have you here.
Always a pleasure to be here.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're slowly becoming a resident panelist.
Yeah, you should start paying me.
I know. And on my left, we are joined by Sandrine Uwimbabazi. Sandrine Uwimbabazi Maziateke is the director of Rwanda Community Abroad at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Sandrine, great to have you.
Pleasure to be here.
Great. And also joining us as a resident panelist on The Square is Berna Namata. Always a pleasure to have you, Berna.
Thank you, Jen.
My name is Jen MPC, host of The Square, and thank you for tuning in. We started late, apologies, so we're going to go quickly into the conversation. And usually we have midweek highlights, but I think we're going to dive directly in. And my first question on behalf of the panel is to you, Sandrine. Rwanda Day has been organized for the last 10 years by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, where you work as a director of a Rwanda community abroad. And the first Rwanda Day started in 2010 in Brussels, right?
Yes.
So if you can just share with us very quickly the rationale behind Rwanda Day. Like how did it start? What was the inspiration in creating this, now annual event 10 years ago?
Well, Rwanda Day actually it started even, I would say that even before 2010, but it was not called Rwanda Day yet, because actually whatever our president, Paul Kagame, is visiting is overseas, he likes to meet Rwandans living abroad, to interact with them, and he comes and have discussions with them. So in 2010, that's how Rwanda Day started, where thousands of Rwandans living abroad were so excited to meet the president of Rwanda. Yeah.
Great. And can you just give us some tangible examples how Rwanda Day has impacted, for instance, remittances into Rwanda, as well as giving us an idea of the recently Career Corner that was established on Rwanda Day 2019. So if you could give us tangible examples of that.
Well, actually in Rwanda Day, people get to interact each other with the government institutions, because when the President of the Republic also is visiting Rwandan living abroad, he comes with also other institutions, governments, leaders. So people just get to, they are so excited to get to know what's going on in the country, the development of the country. So with that, they want to know more, especially young generation. So as we're talking about the Career Corner, nowadays many young people living abroad, they just want to know, they want to contribute. As you know, that Rwanda now is like a shining, rising country. Everybody is so excited, amazing thing that is happening. So Rwandans, they just pay attention, they just want to contribute, they want to come back to the country, they want to embrace. So Rwanda Day gives opportunity not only to young professionals, also potential investors, Rwandans and friends of Rwanda. Yeah, so that's how it raise when they go back to Rwanda and they meet families and they want to send money back home, do businesses. There are so many examples that are happening. People are investing in real estate, in health, in education. So it's keep going on. So now what is interesting is that we have like young generation, I can call them 2.0 generation or even above, young professionals who are looking forward to come back and work for the country, because what is the country is doing is amazing. So, and also we have those young people who are so proud to be African, not only Rwandans. So we're
Friends of Rwanda.
and even friends of Rwanda, but Africa now is the continent of the future continent, where we have so many opportunities. Yes.
And just very quickly, I just want to read some figures for our audiences and as well for our panel. Regarding remittances, in 2018, Rwandans living abroad, according to official figures, sent home around $234 million. And inbound remittances to Rwanda increased by 17% from $155.4 million in 2015-2016 to around $181.9 million in the fiscal year 2016-2017. So there's been a steady increase of remittances to Rwanda, and I think this is caused by, amongst other things, Rwanda Day and various organizations working in the diaspora. Before I go to Muhire Berna, is there something you'd like to add regarding what Sandrine has said?
Just to revisit the event itself in Bonn on last
I'm surprised
weekend.
you weren't there.
I mean, I just come back.
Yes, that's true. Yes.
It was good to see the mood, in the room. Everybody's excited. And then the combination, because it wasn't just Rwandans, you have friends of Rwanda, you have investors. It was good. And then you have the presentations, which were quite good.
I really like the presentations, the sort of TED Talk style, that really good speakers were selected.
Yes. So from the organizing point of view, I think it was really perfect from a distance. And again, well done to RBA for, streaming it live. Most of us felt like we were there. But I think beyond that, if we go back to some of the questions that kept coming up, I think that information, one theme that keeps coming out is people need information. People need information. I mean, you can do all sorts of PowerPoint presentations, but I feel that the 10 minutes at Rwanda Day are not sufficient in terms of information flow. And two, there was, a kind of a feeling that our president is very gracious, and he likes to give people the time, and you can ask whatever you want. But ideally, some of the questions that were coming up, I thought if they were pre-events, and I haven't been part of Rwanda Day, she can clarify that. If there were events planned leading to the bigger event, then perhaps some of these questions, local governments, my land, I think would be addressed. So I think for planning, and you can correct me, I think we need to see events building up to the bigger day, because then that gives you time to, have people present their questions. If the ministers can perhaps go before and be there.
Yes.
And maybe if the resources could allow, some of these local officials that are involved in the day-to-day activities, because land issues kept coming up, land issues, and then you have, I think mainly it was actually land issues, my land and my house, and So I think we need to have events leading to the big day. Secondly, I think we need a calendar. We need a calendar because...
I think this Rwanda Day was a bit, in terms of announcements, and I feel like the public, based on social media, was saying it was a bit too last minute, especially, the information was not given in advance, especially for private sector people who had to quickly organize their transport.
I mean, someone has to give a lot of respect to the Rwandan diaspora, because these guys from all over, made the commitment. Someone, buses, and they were there. It takes a lot of time and resources. Anybody who has lived abroad knows that every minute counts. So to have all these people come, from all over Europe. I think it's a vote of confidence. Because again, if you look at the African diaspora, some of the questions again that were coming to the floor, what can Rwanda teach other African countries? Or
Yes.
the thing is, even in some of these African countries, there is an active diaspora, and they do have their own kind of national day, but it's not as organized, and the government is not as involved. So you'd find that because in some African countries, there's no confidence in the government. The diaspora actually doesn't want to be associated with any government event. You organize it, you put government in it, they'll boycott it. So I think what we are seeing and what we've seen over time, what we saw in Bonn really speaks to the vote of confidence. And I think your department has an opportunity to really take advantage of that vote of confidence and be able to see what kind of opportunities. Because people are looking for opportunities. I mean, you see young people saying, I'm done with school, what can I do? That's information. Some of them need just basic information. So I think your department has its work cut out.
It does. Muhire, before we go to the next question regarding your journeys, both as former diaspora, is there something you'd like to add on Rwanda Day? Because I know your journey back home was in Toronto, Rwanda Day, and that what inspired you to come back home. But if you could just comment about Rwanda Day in general, organization.
Well, I think Rwanda Day is a great initiative, and actually my journey back to Rwanda started at Rwanda Day in Toronto, 2013, if I'm not mistaken. For me, it was this reconnection point, reconnecting with my country, and the fact the government was fully deployed there. We had a lot of ministers, CEOs, private sector. It wasn't as big as it was in Bonn, but of course that was 5 years ago exactly. So for me, it's a great initiative that should be, as you mentioned well, should be scheduled on a manner that maybe people can plan ahead a little bit. But again, what we've seen in Bonn, if you plan, I think I'm afraid we won't have enough space for everyone. If you plan something in 1 month and have more than 5,000 people, it's incredible. So it's a great initiative. Perhaps I can't call it as an exception to the Rwandan community. Maybe for the African community, but also even some countries like Madagascar. They have started to have their Madagascar Day. They don't call it Madagascar Day, but also people are coming, mostly in France. So I think it's something good to keep around. Now, for the questions of land and other questions that keep coming in, they've been around ever since the Rwanda Day exists, and they will still around. Even if prepare 1 week of pre-event, as you mentioned, they will still have those land, small things. Even in Rwanda, when our president goes to the village, they see people have the same issue, land and stuff like that. So I think people get excited very much when they see the leadership coming near to them. Then they don't even want to go through the normal channel to resolve traditional matters. They just want to have a quick answer. So, but it's a good point to reconnect because my journey started in Toronto. Yeah.
Can you just share a bit more light in terms of what transpired during that Rwanda Day to make you come home and do the work that you do as the CEO of Rwanda Cooperation Initiative? Yeah,
well, I wasn't projected to become a CEO of Rwanda Cooperation Initiative today. That was 5 years ago. Yeah. Basically, what I wanted is I was tired of hearing two versions about Rwanda. I left Rwanda when the genocide against Tutsi was happening in '94. I was 12 years old. Then, because what I've seen in 2 weeks, the time I was here, I didn't want to come back to Rwanda. I said, thank God I'm in Canada. I don't want to hear about anything about Rwanda. But everywhere I go, people will say, are you from Rwanda? And then people either get excited or get angry. I'm like, why this reaction? Nobody will ever get just, oh, it's cool. Some countries say, okay, fine. But Rwanda, either you love it or you hate it. And to me, I was like, I need to really reconnect and understand what triggered this reaction from people. So, and of course, I won't lie, I was a little bit nervous. Some of my family members committed genocide, so I was afraid if I come back here, I'll put in jail on behalf of what they've done. So for me, Rwanda Day was a great opportunity to say, okay, I'm in Canada. They can't do anything about me. So let me go and ask the hard question as possible. And really, I went deeper. If you ever see this chairman of Itorero, he was there. I was challenged. I was like, Mr. Ramuriki, whatever you say on TV, do you really believe that? And if I can even tell you a little confidence, as I followed him, he went in a restroom for the men, and I followed him.
Okay.
I'm like, you know where the men we go when we do number one? And I was like, hey, how are you? He's like, yeah, how are you? I'm like, tell me, do you really believe what you're telling me? He's like, who are you? And then he started there. So for me, it was a good point to reconnect with my country. And then, of course, what I've seen, it was totally different what I saw when I was 12 years old. And then from there, I said, I have to come and see this country, definitely. Nobody was looking at my face and trying to figure out who which ethnic I was from, based on whatever character people used to look at. And everybody was so happy to welcome, and the president gave, of course, a great speech about the future of Rwanda, how was Rwanda in diaspora are called to come and participate. So I got excited too. I said, okay, let me visit. And then I came to visit, and I was supposed to stay for 2 weeks. Now I'm here for 5 years. So, and then recently, of course, I got the opportunity or the chance to be appointed as the CEO of Rwanda Cooperation Initiative, with the mandate to now actually codify all homegrown solutions in a manner that foreigners can understand what we've done. Because you mentioned, well, people need information. It's not just Rwandans only. Even foreigners want to understand how on earth this country went from a total collapsed state to what it is today. How come people killed each other? Because you know the uniqueness, if I can say, of the genocide of Rwanda, it was done prepared by Rwandans, done by Rwandans, stopped by Rwandans, killed Rwandans. And that people need to understand what we put in place to understand. So for me, again, it's another opportunity to deep dive in my culture. And I'm enjoying the ride. That's what I can say.
Fantastic. Sandrine, very quickly, because we don't have much time, I know you're also working at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, but you were also a former diaspora, living in Brussels. What was your journey to come back home and do the work that you do right now? What influenced you?
Well, like Muhire, my journey started in 2010 when I attended the Rwanda Day, the first ever Rwanda Day edition. And back then, I haven't visited my country. So
you'd never been to Rwanda before?
But well, I left Rwanda after the genocide against Tutsis in 1994, and then but from there, I was staying in Belgium. Well, we went to Congo, and then So afterwards, when I heard that there is an event, a big event, where the President of Republic of Rwanda is going to meet thousands of people, I was so excited. I was like, wow. I was so curious, actually. I was like, let me just go and check how it looks like, because I had this nostalgia. I wanted to know where I come from, my roots. And it was so exciting to see how many people who want they get to get connected, they want to know information. And that's how afterwards I decided to just say, oh, let me go this time, go and pay a visit for the first time. So I came back home 2 years after.
In 2012?
Yeah. Yes. So I came back home. He says, I think Muhire said that he stayed 2 weeks. I think me, I stayed 5 days. I stayed 5 days. But when I came back after, a year after, I stayed for 1 month. So
slowly, you extended.
Yes.
It's coming.
Yes, and afterward, I started being engaged in my community in Belgium, where I also I was elected as a youth leader. So because I like to work with the youth, event management, and I was so excited. So because I was very inspired. I wanted other youth, the young generation under me, to just feel what I'm feeling. And I think it worked, because with that I was driven by the passion, the patriotism of loving my country, see how my country is running, is shining. I was like, hey, why can't I be part of it? How can I inspire others? Other young youth who were raised there, who were born there, and then were organizing amazing events, and then that's how it started. And then likely, hey, a couple months ago, I was recruited at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and I'm very happy and humbled. And I think I'm in a good spot to just, because the vision is to be able to serve my country, and I'm really so very, very happy to serve my country and to inspire other youth, and also to see how we can connect, interact with the young generation who wants to know, as you say, who lacks of information. We want to give them information. So our department, as we're saying, we provide...
For the Rwanda community abroad.
Yeah, Rwanda community abroad. We provide services for Rwandan community living abroad. It can be from consular services, what you heard in Rwanda Day, land issues, immigration, how can a Rwandan when it's the first time you get in the country, how a Rwandan living abroad can get an ID, how we represent a Rwandan community living abroad. So I would like to take this opportunity to say, hey, you're all welcome. You're all welcome to Rwanda. We'll be here to serve you. So anything that you need, we'll be able to guide you, to connect you to other institutions. Yeah.
Brenna, I can see you're burning to
she mentioned the patriotism bit, and I wanted to speak to that. There's an American who said that patriotism is supporting your country when it deserves it. And I can tell you that most of the diaspora lives that kind of life. They support their country when they feel the country deserves the support. So it's not just, I am Rwandan and I'm supporting Rwanda. No.
Yeah.
It is, does Rwanda deserve the support? And so far what we're seeing is that actually the diaspora is saying Rwanda deserves the support. That's one. Two, I think in terms of growing the relationship with the diaspora, it has to be clear that for the diaspora, they have exposure. They have multiple channels of communication. So when you're packaging content for the diaspora, they are in position to actually say this is true or this is not, which is a big challenge, for I think your departments, because quite often sometimes what we see is that sometimes the information flow, one, you have the risk of misinformation, and then two, sometimes we are gentle with the reality on the ground. Now, anybody who has interacted with the diaspora will know, one, they pay all the attention that needs to be in terms of spending. If you're telling them, come and invest here, they really want to do due diligence. Will I get my money back? Because these are people who are working, 24 hours,
Absolutely.
Yes. So to them, it's not enough just to say, you can register your business in 24 hours. They will be interested in the detail. What is the cost of electricity? What is the cost of transport? What is the cost of labor? That's what the diaspora does.
So, but isn't this information available to them in this day and age? I think so.
Well,
on social
media,
you see, on websites, the work that
there's always a risk.
Information is there.
I'm telling you, if you watch the session, then yes, there are things we take for granted that actually people have information, but they don't. So I wouldn't want that her department assumes that this is basic information that every Rwandan should have, or the diaspora has access to World Bank doing reports or WEF, the competitiveness. We can't assume that. I don't think there should be room to assume. But let us try to package and just, make the information available.
But Brenna, I think I beg to differ a bit because I feel that information is there. On the websites, there is content that is comprehensive, detailed, from RDB to RCI to Minafet, I feel the duty should be on them to read. I think also we need to understand that potentially some of them don't actually go digging for this website. So I feel like, and I want us to go to a tweet because Charles has some interesting points. I feel like some of the questions they were asking, this is basic research. And sometimes I think maybe diasporians or diaspora, Rwandans in diaspora, maybe don't do that due diligence before coming and asking these questions.
The best thing also,
this information
let me
is there.
speak to that. Let me speak to that. There's no doubt that the information is there. We are living in a world of over-information flow.
Yes.
Okay? There, so in terms of competitiveness, I mean, remember, the diaspora is, one, most of the time they have nationalities where they are. Okay? So if I am living in Britain, I would be more concerned about Brexit than what's happening in Rwanda. So how do you get the Rwandan living in Britain to actually care about policy in Rwanda?
Can you answer the question
So
yourself?
for me,
Yes.
I feel that her department has to actively engage and on a permanent basis to say, if, as we, for instance, if we have policy change, we should send newsletters. We should be able to package and actually update targeted, kind of information. We can't take it for granted. And the diaspora doesn't have time to run through, go to the RRDB website and download and then go through. They don't have that time.
So like packaged, quick bites of
quite
of
targeted,
information.
well, simply they can just buy a ticket and come. It's so simple and so obvious. She did it, I did it. Back then, what's available today wasn't even there. I remember I even struggled to find where RDB was. And of course, I was lucky to find where it was. And then, of course, the CEO, Clara, received me. But today, if you go online, everything's there. And I think if really someone is really concerned and wants to discover Rwanda, just take the ticket. It's not that expensive. It's a worth investment.
I beg to differ on that, but we'll get back. I want us to just quickly go to our social media feed and have some tweets. And the first tweet we'll start with is from Charles. Charles is a resident panelist of the show. He's not here, but he's here through Twitter, through social media. And his first tweet says, if you could have it on the screen, his first tweet says that the square, every year, Rwanda Day improves in organization. Kudos to the organizers. This was the first time we didn't really have protesters. His second tweet says,
Can I comment on that?
Yes.
I don't think that there's a link between...
But let's just quickly read this tweet because it's on screen. The next tweet says, some of the questions asked by the diaspora in attendance are below par. That's always Charles, as usual, with his hard approach. Yeah. One gets the feeling that our president is tortured and the opportunity to have him for hours is not put to optimal use. And his last tweet states that Rwanda Day should be more than a single day so that especially the business community can extract more value. And this goes to what Brenna was saying. Let's have events leading up to Rwanda Day. Some of these issues can be solved in sideline or pre-events so that, they're really good, optimal areas, thematic areas of discussion when we are having His Excellency there and we really optimize
But on that
his
one...
time.
Can
I
speak to... Yes, very quickly. Let me speak to the protesters. Yes. It's good that you have the organizers contained, but for me, I would interpret it differently. I would think that there are less disgruntled people. There's less...
Which is what Chelsea is saying is good.
No, because organizing could have been, putting them away.
You think
but
so?
I don't know. But I want to assume that we have less disgruntled people. So we are good to go. In terms of, below par, I don't know how you define what question you feel to you is...
It's relative.
We don't have a definition. And also I think that everybody will want to use the opportunity they have. It is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If you're given a microphone to speak to the president, it's a lifetime opportunity. And within your space, you will speak to what is within your space. So I don't agree that people should define what kind of questions people ask His Excellency. I don't think so, because people speak to their space.
If Charles was here, obviously you guys would be arguing.
Sure, absolutely.
As usual, our last question before we go is to do with the theme of this year. The theme of this year was Rwanda 25, Owning Our Future. My question to you is, do you think Rwanda Day, and very quickly, over the last 10 years, has really unified Rwandans? Rwandans who disagree on things from politics to social economic development. Do you think it has unified Rwandans in the diaspora? And as well as what more do you think we can do in the next 10 years for future Rwanda days? And I'll start with you, Muhire.
So I think, yes, in terms of unifying Rwandans, we've seen a lot of self-imposed refugee and other people who thought whenever they'll come to Rwanda, they will be, I don't know, jailed and whatsoever because of what their relatives have done, coming to Rwanda, investing in Rwanda, and at the same time also bringing the Rwandans in Rwanda to that new reality abroad, also have opened their eyes on how others sometimes perceive Rwanda, and then today when they come back, they can still interact with them on social media, trying to share as much as possible. So I think it's a huge component part of bridging the gap between I think 3 million of Rwandans who live abroad, which is a lot. If they get kids in 10 years, they're going to be maybe 8 million of Rwandans abroad. So it's really important to keep that gap, and Rwanda is doing a great job. What can be done? You've mentioned some initiative, having on 1 or 2 days, being scheduled on time. I think we're on the right track. And also the fact also they are changing people who present or who give presentations. It's very important. Because sometimes the people may think, oh, I'm here again. This guy is on payroll. So it's really important to bring new faces, new people, new experiences. And I think we're on the right track. There's really nothing I can add on that.
What do you think, Sandrine?
Yes, I really agree with you here, because actually coming to Rwanda Day is like, for a person who hasn't been to Rwanda before, it's like a journey, you know. It's like a good exercise, because we've seen people who were like afraid or scared to go to Rwanda.
Yes.
When they come to Rwanda, they see other people coming in, and even people they used to know, they hear, they can meet leaders, government leaders. How can I talk to a minister? Some people living abroad, they have like, they think those guys are not accessible. So going to Rwanda Day, as Muhire said, like he met Bamoriki, they had to
He
interact.
accosted him in
in
the men's washroom.
Exactly. So there are lots of examples like that, and after it inspired them to go to Rwanda. And also what I can add also, since like 2010, I mean, through my experience in Rwanda Days, is the difference of the changing of audience participants. You know, it used to be maybe probably the same old people who were attending Rwanda Days, but now it was exciting to see, like, for example, in Bonn, many youth attending Rwanda Day. So things are changing. Like, yeah, we should do more, like more events in other events. Like this year we had the exhibition, which was very, very good.
Exhibition showcasing what? Companies? Services?
Yes, exhibition showcasing companies. There were, but we had 59 companies actually from Rwanda showcasing opportunities.
Private sector, public sector?
Private sector, including that. 5 government institutions also were available to explain to Rwandan community living abroad services they can provide, you know, for them. And it was very good to see how those government institutions, they can interact. Also, for them, they realized that there were so many questions that was raised in Rwanda that they didn't even think about it. It was like, oh, okay. I mean, they were very, very happy to be part of it. And also, of course, the Career Corner, which I believe was very successful, and gave opportunities to young generation to give them, hey, there are also companies also who would like to embrace your skills also, because those young generation, I'm sorry I'm insisting to that, because it's part of my journey.
Yes.
Because when you live outside of your country, you're trying to find yourself, you are a professional, you're living your life, hey, but you never forget where you come from.
Yeah.
So lots of youth, they ask themselves, they ask those questions. So the fact that there was this Career Corner, and we had also other youth who raised the questions wanting to come back to the country and work, it showed us there's this big need of also young generation wants to come back to work in the country, who are looking for to know more opportunities. So as we're talking about more events in Rwanda Days, I think we should also try to emphasize on how we can organize events and in the big events. Yes.
Absolutely. I want us to go to our Twitter feed. We have some tweets coming up as well. And this is, and it kind of echoes what you're saying, Sandrine. It's to do with youth. This person called Omar says, promoting youth talent in our diaspora through creating more business platforms is additional to Rwanda Day. This would increase youth involvement in our industrialization process and connecting to their motherland. So he's talking about creating more business platforms, additional to Rwanda Day. Is this something you think can happen? But is it being done?
Absolutely, yes. It's doable. There are so many examples of startups that already started. Also, because of Rwanda Day, actually, when you hear inspiring stories, testimonies. It's not only Muhire and I, and we can have also others who have
Rwanda Cash.
Rwanda Cash.
Which now got foreign investment. It became bigger now.
So Rwanda Cash it came as a result of Rwanda
Yeah, it was from Belgium. This guy, I forgot his name, Ramazan. Now he came from Rwanda Day, he invested, money transfer between Belgium and Rwanda, and recently he got some investment from I don't know who, now it's bigger company actually. Yeah, and money transfer, something like that. So initiative from diaspora, so it's working. Yeah.
I just have one more question before I hand over to Brenna. There's been questions regarding Rwanda Day. It's always, in the diaspora, it's always held out of Africa. It's always held
that was on my mind.
Across the Atlantic, in Europe, in the US, and so forth and so on. And I want to address this to you, Sandrine. Is there a possibility that we can have Rwanda Day on the continent?
Absolutely.
Is it in the pipeline, do you think?
Yes.
Yes.
Actually, whatever there's a Rwandan citizen, a Rwandan abroad, why not Rwandan can happen in the country? So yes, in Africa, we heard that so many people asking that question. But in my ministry, also I heard that there's this projection of having a Rwanda Day in Africa.
In Africa,
yes.
Especially since you said, in Rwanda Days, there are lots of friends of Rwanda, most of them Africans, who are asking, can you share your best practices with us? Can you share your stories with us on the continent? And, as African brothers and sisters, I think it would be impactful in having it in another African country, whereby that country that hosts Rwandan community can actually benefit from some of the things amongst Rwandans talk about during Rwanda Day. Brenna, is there something you wanted to add?
No, just to say that in terms of the approach,
yes.
The diaspora stands to benefit from the different reforms that are targeting everyone who is looking at Rwanda. So if it's doing business, if you do more to improve the environment at home, like we've seen with the several indexes, I think it becomes clear that even if you're in the diaspora, it's easier to do business at home. So you don't really need a special appeal for Rwandans to come back home or to do business at home. And I think His Excellency alluded to that today, saying that you may have some youth that go for further studies and they don't come back, but he knows that eventually they decide to come back. So I think the focus as you mobilize the diaspora, what is happening back home, and again I'm going back to information. We cannot take it for granted. Information and communication.
And strategically packaged information.
Yes. We shouldn't take it for granted that people have this information. I don't think that we should. So if there's a policy, a ministerial order, there should be a brief for the diaspora. They need to know. Can we have a newsletter, for instance? Can we have monthly bulletins in embassies? Giving key updates, regular updates, because then at least, and also some initiatives come up. With Irembo, you'd be very surprised. There are people who may not even know that Irembo exists, and you can imagine what Irembo would do for somebody in the diaspora.
Absolutely.
So it's, some people don't know.
But just very quickly, I think I visited the Rwanda Diaspora Global Network. These are platforms that have been created to really give information. to Rwandans in the diaspora. But unfortunately, the website, first of all, I don't think it's online. And so I went to another website that has information about the Rwanda Diaspora Global Network. So yeah, we need to do better with the platforms that we create to really give information, access to information to Rwandans in the diaspora.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and just, I'm told we have a bit more time, so I want to address, I wanted to connect the work you do, Rwanda Cooperation Initiative.
Yes.
It's kind of connected to the diaspora.
Yeah.
And also countries across Africa, because you are inspired to come home based on a Rwanda Day. And what you're doing is you came home and you're working in a company that actually curates Rwandan homegrown solution and then shares it with the rest of the world,
Yes.
Africa mostly. Can you shed more light on this?
Yeah, well, the connection between what I'm doing with the diaspora probably will be someone people who are born outside of Rwanda. They need to know also what's Muganda, what's Gacaca. There's a lot of myth about Gacaca.
Such as they think it's forced.
Yeah, they think it wasn't really fair sometime, but when you look at it and you look at the great work that has done, it goes even beyond what we may just see in terms of it judged only 2 million people, but the reconciliation part of this thing, it's very important. We have a city that maybe I want to name today from United States that is coming next year to look at how Gacaca can help them to reconcile black and white people. So we have already 2 universities in the United States who already want to help us packaging that so they can introduce as alternative way of reconciling people into their normal curriculum on traditional law, common law, and other laws. So you can see a Rwandan who lives in diaspora, that's born and live in diaspora, one day will go to Harvard or another university, I'm just saying that, and then he will be introduced by someone else about this way of reconciling people. So it's very important to really, the work we are doing, I really value that because we are packaging in a more rational way with data. So even Rwandans who have never been touched in their country, once they will open those books, once they will read those documentary, they will understand what's happening in Rwanda. So that's the connection I see. Now for the rest of Africa, you'll be surprised. We have people as far as from Sri Lanka, Haiti, Peru coming to my office, try to understand how on earth did you turn over from hell to heaven almost. And for me again, it's another privilege to witness the reaction from outside people who look at us like, wow, if Rwanda can do something from their own culture and value and extract something that can help them to develop, then it's possible for us. It's some of inspiring others. So yeah, the work we do basically is welcoming foreigners and helping them to understand the principle behind homegrown solution. And of course, we are sending advisor and Rwandan experts to mostly Africa. If you read the news, you have seen it. And for us, it's not bragging or trying to show off. It's simply we are sharing the Rwandan story, but in a more rational way. We have
comprehensive.
Yes, exactly. Less politics, more data, and at the same time serve to those who say the Rwandan model doesn't work. We have data; it's working. And so for me, not only I'm introducing the Rwandan to people who have no idea what Rwanda is, but also secondly, I'm giving argument to whoever think the Rwandan model doesn't work. I'm showing him that it's working with the data. So basically, that's what we do on a daily basis. Very challenging, but quite interesting. Yeah.
Thank you very much. We've come to the end of our show. Thank you very much for coming through for the 3rd time, Muhibe. And Sandrine, thank you very much for coming and representing the ministry, which is the institution that has been organizing this event for the last 10 years. Thank you very much. Brenna, always a pleasure to have you on board. Thank you very much. And I'd just like time to thank our partners, Bourbon Coffee and Uzi Collections. Uzi has us, the resident panelists, in Rwanda Day attire, always promoting Made in Rwanda. Thank you very much for tuning in. Keep the conversation going on our Twitter feed using the hashtag right on your screens, #TheSquareRW. Thank you for joining us, and see you again next week. Have a good night.